Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Unplugged with Pam Breakfast Club Edition. My name is Pamela Pacheco, and I have the absolute honor, pleasure, and privilege of being your host like I am every Thursday morning. Welcome. I see, type your name, let me know where you guys are dialing in from. I see we have Atlanta in the building, Tampa, Florida, New York City. Welcome, 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 Philly. Welcome, Jersey. Welcome, Detroit. Welcome, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties this morning, but we are here. And oddly enough, what we're talking about today is the fear of being seen, because I do believe that the fear of being seen is costing you. I used to say I wanted more. How many of you guys can relate to that? And I didn't realize that I was actually hiding. How many of us want more income? And we say this all the time. We want more income. We want more influence. We want more visibility. We want more kingdom impact. But we hesitate when it's time to actually be seen. And let me tell you something. You do not lack strategy. You lack safety. And visibility does not feel safe. Our brains, yes, they're made to make us feel safe. But there's been so many times that I have hesitated to post, that I've hesitated to undercharge. Even a time when I remember going on TV and the imposter syndrome kicked in. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to sound perfect in my Spanish. My Spanish is not the best. And oh, Lord knows, maybe somebody will not be able to connect in that way. Maybe I won't be able to resonate to this person. Or maybe this person is just not going to like how I look, how I sound. And I had to remind myself, who cares? Half of the people that have an opinion don't even matter what their opinion is about you, because 9 out of 10 times that opinion, that reflection is not so much about you, but about what they need to fix in themselves. So I reminded myself that I needed to show up, because what I felt, that nervousness, that imposter syndrome, that what if, it didn't really matter unless I actually pushed and pulled through it. And I also understand that even in my body, I felt so tense. The tension that I felt before I actually did it was nothing in comparison to actually how I felt after I finished, after I even saw the finished product. And I was like, you know what? Of course, we're going to criticize ourselves. Like, oh man, I could have said this better. I could have done this better. But guess what? You did it. You did it. And there's so many times that your fear of what other people think, your fear of how other people are going to perceive you, stop you from operating in your gifts. And why I say that visibility feels unsafe, because our nervous systems, our brains, they're actually made to protect us, right? And that's why anytime that you are doing something that's uncomfortable, like me going live on here, you immediately are, your brain's job is to keep you safe. And I remember transitioning my calls for the very first time. I have been doing our Breakfast Club call every morning at 8 a.m. for 6 years on Zoom. Prior to Zoom, we used to meet in coffee shops. Shout out to the beautiful city of Brockton, Massachusetts, where it all started. And I remember meeting up every single morning and doing this. And I was so comfortable doing it in person, because sometimes we started at 8, sometimes we started at 8:05, sometimes we got our coffee. Nobody was recording, nobody was live. And then I started going into Zoom, and that was a little uncomfortable, because I'm like checking the room and seeing who's there, and then transitioning into live. And man, do we know there are some trolls on the internet? Right? Y'all know what the internet does not play, right? But it was just fear. And I had to overcome that, because I realized that if I didn't do it, I was not going to know how I was going to feel on the other side. But more than me, it's about me adding value into people's lives. When we're talking about your brain is job is to keep you safe, is because when you're visible, we're always thinking of, man, is that person going to judge me? We're always thinking of, oh, man, am I going to be misunderstood? I can be criticized. So our nervous system immediately exposes it as danger. So it interprets this exposure as a threat to your safety. And that's why your brain is going to tell you to shrink. Your brain is often even going to tell you to delay. Your brain is even going to tell you to over prepare, to know you got to perfect it more. This is the second time today that I am doing this call. Why? Because the first time I did it, it didn't do what it was supposed to do. And how many of y'all know that that is uncomfortable to do something all over again, especially after you know that you gave it your all? I'm like, there's no way I got to do this again. But you know what? I had to do it again because I believe that there's somebody that needed to hear this message. So sometimes it doesn't matter how much you over prepare or how much you feel that you're not prepared. You have to know that the only way through is through. I remember even when starting the podcast of Unplug with Pam, and I'm like, man, this is actually going to be on a public forum. Like my Breakfast Club calls are cool every Thursday morning, but they're my tight knit community. These are my people. These are a lot of my business partners, my mentees, my family, my community that just tunes in from all over the world, all different time zones. But when I launched the podcast and I'm talking about real life, I'm talking about things that I had to heal from in private. I'm talking about real mental health. I'm talking about different aspects, and I had to be vulnerable. I had to talk about things that I had to grow from. I had to talk about guilt that I had to let go of, shame that I had to let go of, things that I had to heal from. It's not always going to feel the safest, but I understood that there had to be a shift that had to take place. But for that shift to take place outside of how people were actually going to perceive me, it had to take place inside. I knew that I knew that I was not here to just be an influencer. And there's nothing, I'm not knocking influencers, but for me, it was about impact. So it had to be a shift from influencer to strategy. I knew also that as I've been progressing in my coaching career, I had to increase my rates. And it's interesting because I had a conversation with a client that's like, yeah, my husband doesn't understand this and that. And I said, I get it, because there has to be a shift from an employee mindset to a CEO mindset. But I'll tell you what, only in the absence of value is price ever an issue. So there's no way I'm going to teach somebody how to make millions of dollars and charge only a few $100s. There's no way I'm going to help your business scale astronomically and not know the value that it is that I bring. And that all has came with reps. Success loves reps, doing it over and over and over again. So I encourage you to ask yourself how I had to ask myself, when did visibility actually feel dangerous? What was it that I was afraid that people were going to say? What was it that I was afraid that people were going to judge me for? What was it that I was afraid of? And really, who doubted you? What narrative was it that you had to fight internally? Because I need you to repeat this after me. I didn't lack talent. I lacked tolerance for exposure. Because I believe that we do not lack talent. I believe that your gifts will always make room for you. I believe that the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. So if you are positioning yourself as an authority in the marketplace, if you are positioning yourself as a credible resource, not only for your family, not only for your friends, for the communities that you live in, for the people that it is that you know that you're called to serve, we have to step out. And that is not always going to feel the greatest. And truth be told, that's always not going to feel the most comfortable. That's always not going to feel the safest. But I'm going to tell you, there's a cost of staying hidden. The market cannot reward what it cannot see. I'm going to say that again. The market cannot reward what it cannot see. Why? Because I believe visibility builds credibility, and credibility builds profitability. And visibility, yes, it does equal credibility, and credibility equal profitability. Why? Because you have to establish yourself as a credible resource and as an authority in your marketplace, as an authority in your space, as a thought leader in your subject matter. So if you're the person that says, I know that I'm great at this, why aren't you showing it? Because you care about what other people think. And if you've tuned in with us before, you've heard me say this all the time. 90% of the people you care about their opinions and you love and you will do anything for, they're going to make a decision not to go to your funeral based upon the weather that day. But we care so much about what these people are thinking. We care so much at what their opinions are going to be, of what criticism they're going to say. And a lot of the times is that they're reflecting or projecting on you the things that they're afraid of themselves, and the things of that they need to fix in them themselves, the tough conversations that they need to have with them themselves. So when I tell you that visibility equals credibility and credibility equals profitability, is because I know that the only reason I remember my very, very, very first brand deal. Right. My very first brand deal was with Express. Shout out to Express. I absolutely love Express. I have been wearing their jeans since I was 15. It was my mom, my sister, our favorite jeans. Like, you know, we're Dominican voluptuous. So it's like they're just made great jeans. Okay. So I remember the first time I started going on TV, and the suits that I was wearing were from Express. And I was like, man, I don't know if I really want to post this or not. I don't know if I really want to be seen in this. And I was just like, who cares? Who cares? Yes. Oh, people have known me for such a long time for being a community builder, for being a business owner. I don't care if people be like, oh, well, you know, she's a business coach, and she's a speaker, and she's a travel and lifestyle, and she builds community. Well, guess what? I got to look good in what it is that I'm doing. So yes, I'm going to get the brand deals as well. But the moment that my mindset shifted, I said the action followed through, and I started tagging Express. And then they had an influencer program that came about, an Express partner program. And I was actually invited to be one of the very first people that actually did that in Tampa, Florida. And the International Mall hosted an event for us. And it was beautiful to see so many people from all different walks of life. It was even cooler that I got to reconnect with a childhood friend of mine. So it was beautiful because I knew that if I didn't take that step forward, it was never going to happen. But that brand deal happened because I was actually visible. So instead of paying $200 for every suit that I was wearing to go on TV, because y'all know we have to switch it up, right? I'm just a girl. I was actually to have a brand deal to be able to do that. There's been speaking engagements that I've gotten from posting. There's been so many opportunities that have came just because I kept posting. Clients for consulting, not only brand deals for me, brand deals for my clients. Recently, one of my clients got a Robert Graham partnership. Why? Because I took the first step in saying, no, we're going to be visible. No, we're going to keep showcasing that we are who we say we are. So if you're in that season of your life that you're like, man, I don't even know if I deserve to do this. I don't know if I'm credible enough to do it. Well, the only way through is through. So you have to take that first step forward. And I will tell you that one post will change your trajectory. One post will change not only the trajectory of your business, not only the trajectory of your life, but it will change the trajectory of your entire life's work, the trajectory of how you're adding value to people's lives. And I understand that I didn't get paid for potential. I got paid for positioning. You do not get paid for potential. You get paid for perceived authority and perceived value in the marketplace. So, what I'm asking you now, I guess, is what is it that you're actually afraid of? Because I had to ask myself that. So, these are really the top four. The judgment. We're afraid of being judged by others. Sometimes we're even more afraid of being judged by the people that know us, by the people that we love, than we are afraid of being judged by people that don't know us. We're really afraid too of outgrowing people. That's a big one. We're afraid of outgrowing our A1s for day ones, right? We're afraid of outgrowing the people that we started this journey with, the people that probably are your neighbors, the people that you went to school with, the people that are your closest friends. But I understood that not everybody could go where I was supposed to. And not everybody was going to understand the vision. And not everybody was meant to be a part of the journey that was going to bring that vision to fruition. And it doesn't mean that you love them less. It just means that It's okay to give yourself permission to outgrow people so that you can be a good steward of your gifts. And we're going to get into that in a second. Here's another one that people are afraid of, because I know I was too. The responsibility that comes with it. To whom much is given, much is required. The responsibility that came with it all, your ability to respond to certain things. And sometimes it's not even so much your ability to respond to certain things, but it's your responsibility to do it with class. It's your responsibility to do it in a way that makes people feel safe, that makes people feel seen. Your responsibility to respond with kindness, to respond with love above all things. And sometimes we're really even afraid of the success. So when I understood this, there had to be a moment for me to continue to elevate. There had to be a moment where I had to shift my circle. And it wasn't anything against it, but I understood that even mentors I've had to shift in life. I understood even when I got into entrepreneurship 12 years ago, it wasn't cool. Affiliate marketing wasn't a thing. Entrepreneurship wasn't sexy. Now it's everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. But 12 years ago, when I was working as a commercial banker, 70, 80 hours a week, completely time broke, if it wouldn't have been for me witnessing my mom's health deteriorate because she was so stressed out on her job, I wouldn't have taken not only that leap of faith into entrepreneurship, I wouldn't have taken that leap of faith into entrepreneurship to do it in a way that I didn't care about going through the rejection, that I didn't care about going through the criticism, that I didn't care having to outgrow the people, because nobody understood what it felt like to live what it was that I was living. Nobody understood what that fear that crept in when you see the most important person in your life start to get sick over stress. And there's a mindset shift that happens, because I said, if they could do that to my mother, that is an attorney, that means they could do that to me in an instant. My little MBA, what that's going to do? She had a whole Juris Doctorate. But in that moment, I understood that there had to be a shift in here. There had to be a shift that took place from an employee mindset to a CEO mindset. There also had to be a shift that came that I completely just disengaged from other people's opinions, that I completely just disengaged from the rejection, from the criticism, because I understood that growth will cost you comfort. And when being bold felt lonely, I understood that I had a responsibility, whether it was the pressure of having a million people watching, whether it was the pressure of leading women, of leading my family, of leading a public voice. As much as I felt sometimes I actually didn't want to shrink, I just didn't want the weight of it all. I just didn't want the weight. It was heavy to carry. I was just like, this is too much sometimes for me. But again, to whom much is given, much is required. And I understood that if I wanted this completely different life, I had to completely change my mind. And there's moments over and over and over again in your life that you have to give yourself permission to pivot. You have to give yourself permission to be seen. You have to give yourself permission to prosper. You have to understand that you cannot read a book. I always tell my students, the Bible is basic instructions before leaving earth. And whether or not you believe in, I believe in, that's okay. We're not talking about that. However, I understood that I had to take certain things on there. And if it says my gifts were going to make room for me, I also understood that it meant that I had to keep moving, that it meant that I had to take the leap of faith, because two thoughts cannot coexist in the mind at the same time. I cannot have fear and I cannot have faith at the same time. Just like you can't say, oh, I want to expand, but I want to feel safe at the same time. Safety and expansion cannot coexist. So when I say when I talk to you about Godfidence, shout out to Girls of Color Takeover. I was just talking to this beautiful group of girls on Monday celebrating Black History. Shout out to my girl, Dr. Teresa. And it was beautiful because I told them, I said, worldly confidence performs. Godfidence, it rests. Godfidence, it has peace, and it gives you peace because whether or not they love for your performance, you're living out your purpose. You're living out in your calling. So there was so many times where I clearly knew that I was called to do higher. I clearly knew that God was like, you need to move now. And I was just afraid. But guess what? I knew I had to be obedient. I had to be obedient anyway, because the obedience will cost you. However, it will cost you not to move forward. When you're disobeying, it will cost you to live in fear. And I knew that if I did not move forward, it was beyond the income, it was the impact, because the income was just a byproduct of the bigger picture. The income was just a byproduct of the impact that I was making in people's lives. So when I knew that at that moment too, it was like hiding was not humility, it was hesitation. And obedience requires you to be visible. So you're like, okay, Pamela, this makes sense. And how do I actually move forward with this? Well, number one, post before you're ready. Just do it. Post before you're ready. My first live, I can tell you, I have so many friends that you would never think they are scared of going live. They are the biggest influencers, the biggest thought leaders, millions of views, hundreds of thousands of followers, and they're afraid of going live. Because right in that moment, oh my goodness, people are going to be analyzing, criticizing, all of these things. Just do it. I felt the same exact way, and that's why I could talk about it. I felt the same exact way when I went live. But then after I watched it, I was like, oh, that wasn't that bad. Oh, I got better. And you could just get better and better. Now, this live that you're watching right now, is it perfect? No, I had to do it again 2 times today. Technical difficulties. But you know what? I understood that I'm on assignment. I understood that my assignment is greater than my annoyance in the moment. I understood that my calling is greater than the circumstance. I also understood that when you know that you are chosen for kingdom impact, when you know you are chosen for kingdom work, you're going to let go of the fear. You're going to let go of the criticism. You're going to let go of the judgment. You're going to let go of what other people got to say. Number 2, raise one public standard. So maybe it's you saying, you know what, I am going to give my Facebook, my Instagram, my LinkedIn, I'm going to rebrand it. I'm going to give it a facelift. I am going to change my profile picture. If you're one of my mentees, you know I'm all about having professional headshots. Your AIs are cool. Don't let me get started on that. That's another topic for another day. However, take some professional headshots. Maybe your standard is you just raising your price. It's interesting because I was just talking to one of my clients, and she was like, oh, my husband is, saying that the investment is a little steep for the coaching. And I was like, I know. I said, but it's relative, because only in the absence of value is price ever an issue. I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars on personal development in the last 12 years. Masterminds, conferences, you name it. So you think that I'm going to undercharge myself? Undercharge? No. I'm not going to undervalue myself. I already did that, been there. However, I also knew that if I am helping businesses scale, if I am helping people change the trajectory of their life, if I'm helping people scale to millions of dollars, if I am helping people live beyond their wildest dreams, why would I charge my price? My price is my price. So when I tell you that certain little tweaks, when you do it in one area, it will overlap into everything else. The amount of not only confidence that it will, but the amount of credibility in yourself and belief in yourself and allowing you to move forward, you're going to let go of that imposter syndrome. You're going to let go of the what ifs. You're going to let go of the fear really, really quickly. So number 1, post before you're ready. Number 2, raise one public standard. Number 3, speak once where you thought you would shrink. Speak one time where you thought you would shrink. Man, I'm going to go back to the TV story because that was really, really something. The first time I spoke on TV, not in English, because I speak in English all the time. Y'all hear me talk all the time. But when I had to go speak in Spanish, I was going nuts. The level, shout out to Cristi Valderrama, who was the host of Todo Tampa Bay. Shout out to the entire producing team at NBC WFLA. I love all of you guys. Man, I made friends with everybody at the station because the amount of vulnerability that I had and how real, shout out to Nacha, who was the producer of that show. I was like, how did I sound? And it's interesting to see because in that moment, they were like, you're great. You're absolutely amazing. And then a year later, I'm having a conversation with the producer. They're like, man, today when you talk in Spanish versus when you first came is night and day. But the cool part about it was just seeing you do it. And you did it with such joy and you did it with such enthusiasm that so many of our audience resonated with you. And we knew that your message was going to resonate with people. And that's why we kept inviting you back. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know that until a year later. But in that moment, I was scared. In that moment, I would shrink anytime somebody would ask me to talk in Spanish, especially I'm talking around people that Spanish speaking people that talk Spanish all the time. And I just heard my mom's voice all the time. Is like, see why I told you to work on your Spanish? You see why that was important? You see why I corrected you all of those times that you kept rolling your eyes to the back of your head? I remember my mom, may God rest her soul. I remember I would be doing presentations in Spanish. I would be speaking to teams in Colombia and Puerto Rico and all over. And she would be like, that's great, but say it like this. And I'm like doing this live. And I'm like, but it made me better. It made me better. And I'm so grateful because in those moments that I thought I was going to shrink because I was caring about not being perfect, I was caring about being exposed for not speaking the best Spanish, I was still able to add value. I was still able to impact somebody. Number 4, separate criticism from your calling. Separate criticism from your calling. Whew, that's a big one. When I talked about earlier, you got to give yourself permission to pivot. You got to be able to separate your criticism from your calling. I could tell you story after story after story after story where I received backlash for stepping in further into my purpose, where I received backlash from people, from mentors that I looked up to, from community leaders and builders, because I was stepping into my purpose, stepping into my calling, where they only wanted me to stay in one little box. And I understood that God put something in my heart. God put a dream in me that it was my responsibility to be a good steward of it. And I did not care about it. I'm not going to tell you that at first it didn't feel a little uncomfortable. It did. Because I care what they thought. I looked up to these people. I love them all still, right? But I knew that God loves me more. And I knew that the gifts he put inside of me were for a reason. And I knew that all of this pain that I have endured, it was because greater was the testimony, greater was going to be the impact. And it's still like that. It's still like that. Everything that you have gone through, everything that you thought was going to break you will end up being your breakthrough. So it is of dire necessity that you learn to separate your criticism, their criticism, from your actual calling. The leadership shift. So, leaders do not wait to feel safe. They expand anyway. And maybe you're like, well, Pam, I'm not a leader. You know, that's you. You're an entrepreneur. You own a business. You run organizations. Let me tell you something. Whether you have a career, whether you are in a 9-to-5, whether you are a stay-at-home mom, whether you are a stay-at-home dad, it does not matter. You are a leader. You are leading your ship. You are leading your ship in one way, shape, or form. You are leading your household. You are leading your community. You are leading your children. You are leading your families. You are leading in your gifts. So I ask you, where does that shift need to take place? Where is it that you're hiding? Where is it that you're delaying, like I was? Where is it that you're over preparing? Where are you shrinking? I understood this. We don't want small results. We want small exposure. We want big results, don't we? We want the greatest of the great. But then we think we're like, well, I just kind of want to play it small and do it little by little. If you know you have this massive, massive desire inside of you, it's not for you to shrink. If you know that there's this thing that you can't stop thinking about, this thing that gets you up in the morning, this thing that you just cannot get rid of, it's because God desires to do something greater in you for impact, for his people. So what is it that looks like for you? And we can all have those real conversations, because again, we don't want small results. We just want small exposure. Where is it that you're hiding? I know one thing is for certain. And as we wrap this up, hope all of you guys got value. And again, apologies for the technical difficulties. The life that we're praying for requires a version of you, of us, that isn't afraid to be seen. You were not given a gift to hide it. You were given this gift to lead with it. And the market cannot ever reward what it does not see. So where is it that you need to be seen? Where is it that you need to be heard? Where is it that you need to stop shrinking? Where is it that you are called to lead? Just go do it. Your gifts will always make room for you. As always, it is my pleasure, honor, and privilege to serve you. We are live every morning with Unplugged with Pam Breakfast Club edition at 8 a.m. Make sure you are tuning in. Follow the Unplugged with Pam podcast across all podcasting platforms. As always, it is a pleasure, honor, and privilege to serve you. Great day and God bless. Thank you, guys.